deal with this card on the board with
Yeah.
your board. If you're trying to do cards from hand to deal with it, you got to cash in.
Like the Brits always say, fought me like a brav.
Oh my lord. All right, you're doing the rest of this episode on your own. I'm out.
Is that not
Uh,
a common term in Britland?
uh, to any of our UK listeners, I apologize on his behalf.
Welcome to Casuals of Runeterra, episode 37. I'm your host, Ryan, here with your other host, Hetch.
What is up? What's going on?
We're back. No, it's not too far from the last episode. We took a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
A little tiny break here.
And thank you for that. I needed to have the one weekend, so
Understandable.
appreciate it.
And it was due, right? We had our three-peat of the main three guys there, with Neckboy, Susan, and the Birdman.
Yeah.
And if you haven't listened to those three episodes, listen to them because this kind of culminates in where we're continuing on with the rest of our champions.
They are ascendeds, and they deserve their own little time slot. Okay.
Exactly. Speaking of time slots, we always do housekeeping up top. So obviously you can listen to us everywhere. So if you want to switch platforms for some reason, you can do that. We'll be there. If it's not there, you're lying, as always. And follow us on Twitter to keep up to date on episodes. That's at Podcast Core. That's COR. And you can send an email to podcastcore@gmail.com. I try to check that as much as possible, which is not often.
Let us know where it is that you can't find us, and then we'll be there, and you will once again be a liar.
Exactly. We are never wrong.
Never. Look at my predictions.
So please leave a like, follow, and short review / comment where you can, and tell a friend to learn how to survive by listening to the Casuals of Runeterra podcast.
Yeah, we'll teach you how.
We'll teach you the basics. So, state of the game. What are we playing? I'm still playing that. Okay, so
Oh my god.
even before Shurima came out, I've been playing this Overwhelm deck made by a streamer named Jory, who his playstyle, he's a Japanese streamer, his playstyle is just like mine. So I've just been playing decks that he's been playing, which has been the same Overwhelm deck that focuses around Draven. But with the release of the new set, he swapped out the Riven for the LeBlanc to play around with those new tools. It fits really well into that scheme, and that's working, right? But he made a third version, which is a modified version of the original, which plays Riven, because there's a lot of aggressive decks coming out lately to try to beat the TF Fizz that everybody's trying to figure out that's dominating the ladder at the moment. So I have both versions where I bounce between depending on how the ladder's looking. And then he also put out a new unorthodox spiders deck, like pure spiders with Draven, that I've been anxious to play because it looks fun and it's sort of unorthodox, but I haven't got there yet. I'm going to sooner or later, but I won't talk about it here yet.
I've been running into a couple more spiders. Like at the point that I'm at, like I don't see too much TF Fizz because I'm in like wood tier.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get to iron. But like I do definitely see a lot more like swarmy decks, which like I thought it was just like for me, just running around in the trenches because it like TF like red card would just counter it, but I've been seeing it pop up on more streams too, and it's like okay, the zoo is back.
The zoo is back, dude. We talked about it. Listen, I'm not saying we're always ahead of the curve, but most of the time we are. And what happened is recently there's been a meme rolling around with the 1/2/1 that makes the Sand Soldier, and everybody's like, it's basically a decimate. It's a decimate for one.
A 1 mana decimate.
On turn 1.
Like if you open up the game and you've got the attack token with Shurima, it's just like, all right, like we're not even on the same footing anymore. Like we're not playing the same game anymore.
Yeah, if you don't have a 2-drop, game's over. Game's over.
GG.
That card is really good, and we'll see. There's a lot of, obviously you get to the point where once the meta starts to settle, people start looking for the balance changes, and they're coming. They're very open and communicating with us. So the last patch was more of just miscellaneous nuances and bugs. So hopefully the next one has a good amount of balance to because there's some fun decks passing around. So and we got tournaments coming up. You have obviously the Friday night fights from Giants. Was it Giant Slayers?
Yeah, Giant Slayers.
Tournament, and then you have Twin Suns having an open soon, their first big open. We're going to have like over 100 players and stuff like that coming down the pipeline. A lot more activity in the pro side of things. So it's going to be fun to see. It's going to be fun to see what people have come up with in the meantime.
Yeah, it's really exciting to see that like a lot of the tournament stuff is still getting more traction instead of just maintaining traction. Like we're seeing it all the way from like the tippity top of competition to even like people just trying to get more tournaments going. That's hype train, which is good, especially since we are waiting for an actual balance patch because the desert is vast. It's not a Runeterra podcast until someone says that at least once right now.
So what are you playing, Hedge?
This might explain why I'm in my wood tier, but I'm having fun, so screw you guys.
Hey, casuals of Runeterra.
I'm filthy casual. I've been playing a Shurima Ionia deck that with Talia as the only champion that is built around Monastery of Hirana. And it's it really is abusing the monastery with predict. So like if once you gets to a point as far as like if I have monastery down and like at the point of like 5 mana, you don't really need to be getting late game. Like you just kind of start getting crazy with predicting literally every turn.
Yeah.
And so then at that point I'll be tutoring whatever I want to the top of my deck. It's because when you get late game with it, it's predicting multiple times in a turn until you predict the card you want. And so then with that, like you also have the ability to copy landmarks with Talia. So then I've gotten board states where it's just Talia and nothing but 5/4s because of the Grumpy Rock Bears.
Yep.
As well as being able to play the Kahiri. Because like there's the 2 versions of Kahiri, the 3 mana that's a 4/4 if you predicted, but also the 6 mana one with Fearsome that's a 4/4 but gets +2/+2 every time you predict. But since you have Monastery of Hirana, you're usually just replaying the same one over and over again, and he adds himself back to the deck. So I'll be running around with like 6 or 7 Kahiris in my deck at any given point, and they end up turning into 12/12s if the game goes late. So it's like it has a good mid-range feel of being able to aggro and just blitz someone down, or going late and just trying to play all these fearsomes that look like Susans.
Exactly.
So I've been having fun. It's not good. Do not craft this deck. Do not ask me for the list. It's not worth your time. But I've been having a blast.
Fun first, win second.
Win second.
That's the
if
motto
I'm having
here.
fun, I've already won.
Actually, no, that's the motto. Okay, we'll do that one. All right, so let's hop into the main topic of today. Reckless Ricochet Raider. We're talking about Sivir.
Hell yeah, the princess of the desert herself. All right, and of course, like before we really get into Sivir's story, we got to talk about some cards. Let's talk about the supporting cast here, and we have to talk about this spell here at least once because of how much fun and how effective it is.
You like gambling, kids?
Yeah. Let's go to the casino. Let's spin the slots, baby.
Time.
So we're looking at Payday. So Payday, 2 mana focus spell that is create a lucky find in hand. So if anyone has missed that update patch, focus is burst speed, but only during your main phase, or essentially during your action. So you cannot play a focus speed spell in response to an attack or an enemy spell. But otherwise it's burst speed, which I know we were very excited when they started kind of adding more to this because it gives a lot more balance, flexibility to giving us burst speed spells without us having episodes where we're constantly complaining about 3 mana burst speed spells. Um,
Yeah,
but
we'll find a mana cost for focus spells to complain
we'll
about
get
soon
there.
enough. We're just
We'll get
the
well.
science. You need time for the science to work.
Let's not be too hasty. Let's finish talking about payday before we say we're not going to complain about focus speed spells. So this one is a 2 mana focus speed. Create a Lucky Find. Now Lucky Find is a fleeting 0 mana focus speed spell, and you pick a buff from among 3 to grant an ally. Now that 3 things that you get to pick is off of a larger list. I believe it's about 9 options that um, you choose from. So it's 3 choices out of a larger pool than just 3, and they can include Spell Shield, Challenger, Fearsome, +2 attack, +1/+1, +2 health, Quick Attack, and Tough and Overwhelm. So it's nice
The whole
big list.
gambit
Yeah,
of keywords. Yeah.
yeah, and if for anyone who's been playing a lot of LeBlanc or a lot of Sivir, you know what Lucky Find is. You've seen it because it's like LeBlanc is itching to find those coins.
Yeah.
Um, and like otherwise like it is a fun effect. Like this is a healthy amount of RNG, especially since it's attached to a focus card. It's not really something that like you have to build a deck around. Like this is something that's going to complement a deck that you're playing with. It's going to complement cards that you want to be playing. So if you're not running Lucky Finds, you're not going to be upset about it. Like this is a healthy place for RNG to be, and I'm glad that we're not seeing too much of a reliance for RNG in the game of Runeterra. Especially for someone that's come from a lot of Hearthstone experience. Like this is good. Like
Yeah.
I like this. It's fun, but it's not something that's just like it's not going to take up your entire deck.
Yeah, and the
Uh,
focus speed is great, like you said, because it does allow for the opportunity to react. So regardless of what your opponent gets, you get to see the board state before you get to decide on what's going to happen, rather than having to play around possibilities in your head as it may be if it was burst speed, right? So that's great.
yeah,
That's great.
absolutely. The ability to play
Good
around
card,
it.
and
Like
it's seeing play essentially everywhere on the ladder in different counts.
oh
So
oh yeah, it's seeing play because again we're not like I've been making this joke with you like in our chats for like a week now where like I LeBlanc has no right to see as much play as she does because it's a 3 mana 5/2, but no one's playing P and Z control. Like everyone's just trying to be greedy with P and Z to get your Ladros Dreadway combo.
mhm.
So since everyone's being greedy, LeBlanc gets away with it.
Yeah,
So
for
uh,
now.
for now. So everyone's been seeing that. And then even if it wasn't for that, Aphelios. th- This is a card that triggers Aphelios by itself.
Yeah.
And we don't see a patch for that coming yet because the desert is vast.
The desert is vast.
So yeah, no, we're gonna see we're gonna see more of this card, but
Yeah.
this card's in a healthy spot. Like don't let the memes lead you astray. This
Yeah.
is not the problem child. Um,
Another strong card that we end up getting, as well as this, like is Shurima. They wanted you to play Shurima. We've talked about this in the last 3 episodes, and the next card is just
yeah,
it's something to deal with.
I had to put it on the list for you, Mister. I've been playing the same deck over and over
Uh-huh.
again. So Ruin Runner, the MVP of Shurima. I'll go ahead and say it.
Oh my, that's huge. I didn't expect you to say that.
I'll say it.
So brave.
Is it actually brave? I'm confident that this is the MVP of Shurima. So Ruin Runner is a 5 mana 6/4 with Overwhelm and Spell Shield.
Mhm.
This card's incredible. All right, like this. So you already have the fact that it has Overwhelm. So chump blockers just screw you. All right, there is no chump blocking the Ruin Runner. It's the damage is getting through. Then you've got Spell Shield. We love to talk on this podcast about some dumpies. All right, like all right, the cards that we like have big HP, but Ruin Runner gets around that by having a little bit lower HP total, but spell shield. Like, okay, like you're going to have to deal with this card on the board with your board. If you're trying to do cards from hand to deal with it, you got to cash in.
Like the Brits always say, "Fought me like a brav."
Oh my lord! All right, you're doing the rest of this episode on your own. I'm out.
Is that not a common term in Britland?
To any of our UK listeners, I apologize on his behalf.
As you were. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Spell Shield gets around its HP total, so it keeps it on the board in the way that you want it to be, which is fighting other creatures. And then on top of that, with the release of Shurima, this gives you reputation countdown. A lot of the reputation cards aren't the craziest, or like they're not the strongest cards of the newest release, but the fact that this is a super strong card, especially at the mana slot that you're playing it at, that also complements reputation, which is where this is a card that you definitely want to be playing. If you're playing anything that has Sivir, that has LeBlanc, this is an auto include. This card is incredible. And I think the fact that it's a common on top of that, like anybody can be playing this. Like you don't have to. This is not a huge investment to be playing. This is the MVP of Shurima. I'll call
another
it.
part. And from the lore standpoint, we get a representation of a mercenary, a Shuriman mercenary. This is post all the insanity that was during the Ascendance going wrong, right? The Ruination 2.0 per se.
Yes.
And the quote we got here kind of embodies it as we move into Sivir's main story here. But before the vault, Shurima's mercenaries and tomb robbers must learn to survive the desert's more overt threats. First, the unrelenting heat, which as people living in Atlanta, we understand that part. And second, the multitude of raiders and hellbent on carnage, which, once again, living in Atlanta, we know that part as well.
So are the desert people hell-bent on carnage? Do we know anyone that's a little hell-bent on carnage?
I can't think of anyone.
Okay, that's a shame. So who are we talking about today?
Today, we're talking about the reckless Ricochet Raider herself, Sivir. So she has a pretty standard storyline here. Sivir spent her youth as an orphan. Both her parents were killed by raiders, bandits, mercenaries, whatever you want to call it, just in the mean streets of Shurima post all the nonsense that happened with Azir. So she spent her youth stealing food, scavenging caverns and tombs for trinkets to sell, your standard, street urchin type stuff. During this time, she was good at finding things, but not real great at keeping them because it was a survival of the fittest type approach. So she would, get these trinkets and then people would beat her up and take it. So she got stronger to the point where, as she grew up in her teens, she went to work for a mercenary order, sort of led by this prominent mercenary. And these names, we're gonna wing it. I'm gonna go with Iha Zaharo.
Right, and the fact that we have committed to winging it means that this is now the only pronunciation of it.
This is now the only pronunciation ever given.
We do not recognize any other pronunciation.
Yeah. And during her time under this mercenary queen, per se, she notices the disparity between compensation and glory. When they complete something, because she's good at, finding things. She's a good strategist in her own right. She never gets credit for it. It's always the leader who gets credit for these things. So what she ends up doing is rallying these, I won't call them coworkers, but they're a mercenary band of, sellswords, per se, and says, hey, we should take over command of this guild and run it differently. And they said, okay, cool. But Sivir doesn't want to kill, the leader, but she does leave her out in the middle of the desert to figure it out, right? So she gives her that second chance of hope. So after that period, Sivir kind of rockets this mercenary league into fame, which is always good and bad when you're a mercenary. And one of the jobs they get is from a Nashrimi? Nashrami? How do you pronounce it, Hedge?
I think we'll go with Nashrame.
Nashrame sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah, like
that rolls.
it rolls a little.
Okay.
Let's go Nashrame.
Yeah, they take a Nashrame job to look for this lost heirloom, this weapon that we're familiar with that Sivir has, which is the crossblade called the Kalikar. So it could be Kalikar, it could be Kalisar, it could be Shalasar. I'm gonna go with Kalikar. I feel like because the hard sounds make it sound like a weapon.
Yeah, and again, now that we've committed, that's the only pronunciation. And
Truth.
so, and upon finding the Kalikar, Sivir decides to keep it to herself and kills anyone that disagrees. So, okay, so no carnage. No one in the desert knows this carnage. But wait a second. Kills everyone. She kills everyone that tries to, like, no, we're supposed to give this over to the Nashrame. And she's like, nah.
She's like, no, I like this. It's interesting. Like, she's definitely, you can tell she has hard grit to her. She doesn't kill unnecessarily, but she's not opposed to it because of the environment she was raised in. And you have that duality of naturally growing up, being a victim of raiders and mercenaries, and growing up to become one, right? So as we move forward, she continues this infamous run for her mercenary band, and then Noxians, who are currently, and remember, this is important. This is an important factor here, because the Noxus Empire under Darius, which we haven't gotten to yet, we'll get there, is a liberation empire. So they invade with the sake of liberating slaves, indentured servants, and stuff like that, to make the choice of serving in their army or being free, right, to live their lives. So that makes Shurima a big target, as we've talked about in our Azir episode. If you haven't listened to, go listen to it. So the expedition is coming through Shurima. They catch wind of this mercenary band, and the youngest daughter, known as Cassiopeia, the youngest daughter of General Ducato, is looking for some help, and he gets Sivir's group to help them. It's a lucrative offer. So they take the job, and remember, this is pre-Snake Cassiopeia, for those who don't know. So they take this job to essentially search into these treacherous dungeons, or I guess dungeons, tombs, places they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, well, they're tomb raiding.
Why didn't I think of that? They're getting their Lara Croft on.
This is why I'm here for you. I got you. Yeah, they go tomb raiding.
Yeah.
And then, like, go ahead and envision all of your Lara Croft tombs, as well as like your Indiana Jones tropes.
Yeah.
This is the crap they're running into.
Exactly. So they're trekking through these catacombs, these underground burial sites that they should not be in. And the whole time, obviously, Sivir, a professional, is like, hey, this doesn't seem like it's going well. People are like falling behind. People are dying. She's like, we should just turn around. Cassiopeia just ignores her and keeps trekking forward because she's been paid. It's like, let's get this job done. And they get to essentially the gates of the tomb, or the doors of the tomb that we're all familiar with if you listen to the other episodes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So at this point, Cassiopeia literally stabs Sivir in the back and leaves her bleeding in the sand. You got something to say?
No. I'm just laughing at, like, oh yeah, no, literally.
No,
we
literally.
have to, like, thank God for English catchphrases. We have to specify.
So, or for, once again, our UK fans, she fights her like a bruv.
Oh my God. She does not fight her like a bruv. It's literally stabbed in the back.
It's the opposite. It's the antithesis of fighting her like a bruv.
Again, I apologize to the UK listeners. Please don't give up on us.
So she then takes the Kalikar from Sivir, uses it to open the door as a key. And once the door opens, she springs a trap. There manifests this essentially stone snake that spits venom, searing her skin, and essentially leaving her for dead. So everyone around her, like all the other mercenaries, are panicking at this point. And as the panic happens, before she loses consciousness, she hears this building of just like roaring and this noise of battle, which we know from our previous Neckboy episode is Renekton and Xerath essentially being freed from this tomb and this eternal fight they've been having. So we skip to her regaining consciousness slowly, which picks back up in the Azir episode, which once again, check it out. And the body that Azir finds as he's kind of manifesting back into the world is Sivir. And that's the character that we're told has royal blood. So she's of his bloodline. And she has a mortal wound, so he picks her up, brings her to the healing waters, dumps her in, and it triggers the whole regeneration process of Shurima. Right, a big deal for a little orphan to be the key, the literal key.
It's small detail. Small detail. Hashtag semantics.
Hashtag semantics. To be the literal key that brings the Empire back on footing. So all this happens. We know from Azir's story where this kind of picks up, and her immediate plan after she's healed is to grab her weapon and dip. Right, she's just gonna bounce out, figure everything out, and one place she runs to is the city of Vakara. So in Vakara, she does encounter a situation while trying to lead this new life or figure out how to get back to her previous life, where Xerath comes to find her. And he is currently on the mission of annihilating Azir's bloodline for good. Because the first time didn't work. So second time's a charm.
Right. Second time's a charm.
Yeah.
And in his defense, you would have thought it'd work when literally everybody in the mama was there. Like, I feel you, Xerath. I feel you. You checked every box, and here we are.
Ruination 3.0 coming soon. So during this battle with Xerath, she is encountered by Nasus and Talia, who Nasus we talked about, Talia we'll get there, but they come to her aid, and at that point you're kind of left in the story of, does she choose to stop trying to run from this destiny of how important she is to the grand scheme of Shurima, or does she try to regain her old life in some way or find this new path during all this turmoil that's going on around her? So Shurima, once again, as always, is in a state of nonsense. So
yeah, I just love that, like, her story ends on like this cliffhanger of like you wake up and you're suddenly in a completely different world. It's like, okay, you are now the protagonist of this story. And like Sivir is just like semi-rightfully just kind of looking at it going, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go. Let's just I'll talk to y'all later. And now it's just her life is chasing her. And
yeah.
Like, it just kind of leaves off there, which is great as far as storytelling, but it also gives like this nice little sense of realism to such a fantastical story.
Exactly. So this card takes us to a card as always. And her card, I think they did all right. With representing Sivir. So she's a 4-costed 5/3 with quick attack and spell shield or spell barrier. I can't remember which one is it.
Spell shield.
Right? Spell shield.
Barrier
tough. Shield. Yeah, barrier shield is the
tough barrier.
It's the one where when a spell targets her, it doesn't work. All right, it's that one. So she has quick attack and that one, and her simple thing is you've dealt 35 plus damage, so she doesn't have to be on the board for 35 damage to happen. You just got to do it during the game, and you may not know this, but during a game, people do damage. So it's a pretty easy prerequisite to hit. Upon flipping, she gets the standard buffs here. So she goes to 6/4, and she still has those 2 keywords. And while I'm attacking allies have my keywords. That's good. So that means if you give her any keywords ahead of time before she attacks, they get those.
Cough, cough, payday. Yeah, this is one where it's like, because we love to talk about like how well a card's translated from League of Legends to Runeterra. This is one that like is arguably one of the more difficult ones to do, and I feel like it's a good enough job, like, because in League of Legends it's a speed boost that she provides to her team. Which movement speed is always underrated in a game like League of Legends, but how do you translate how, like, oh, I got the zoomies how do you translate that into a card game? So
Yeah.
this is one where it's like it's fun enough, and it definitely just does give like a bit of the feel of what that's like. But I think it's one that was more difficult. What I do have to say though, they had no business making the art for Sivir's card just so dang good.
Oh yeah.
Like
The sense of motion.
like if you're unfamiliar with League of Legends, Sivir is like one of the OG
Yeah.
characters for the game, which also means that she's been around long enough to where her story has changed too.
Yeah.
But her polygons in League of Legends still look like she's an OG.
Yep.
And then they drop this card on us, and it's like, man, like Riot, like why you gotta call me out like this? I did not need this. All right, I already got to deal with like Wonder Woman releases from DC, and now this. I like okay, I get it. I'm a simp. Just leave me be.
Just leave me alone. Yeah, and it goes again to how we're noticing some of the redesign elements that they want to institute for some of these characters as they do those updates continuously in League of Legends are showing up here and will probably show up in like the RPG that's coming out soon and other things like that. So it's cool to see us get certain characters that do have these redesigns because they are real solid as they work with like other companies, right? Six More Vodka, shout out to them because they've been killing it on the art. So
absolutely killing it.
You don't know us personally, but we appreciate you.
We do. While also, I kind of hate you. Like just leave me alone. Yeah, and,
this takes us,
and then otherwise, like the card is good. Like this is one that where like we didn't have to have this backpedaling like LeBlanc has given us of changed opinions. It came out, we got what we knew we were getting.
Yeah, and the text-wise here on the card fits the lore very well, where it talks about being a victim to mercenaries, growing up as a mercenary, and her views on mercenary work. Right, as far as like come in, pay your share, like do your share, and expect what you're due, but don't get in my way. Right. Mm-hmm. So she respects that everyone is worth what they give. But the moment that you start to become a nuisance, you will be taken care of.
Yeah, and as the flavor text on the flipped version of her card says, if you slow me down or get in my way, I'll kill you myself. So, I love it. Love it.
Yeah, that's it. That's enough. So as always in these episodes, we get to the point where Hetch gets his question or challenge. And
oh boy.
For this one, we're gonna go back to the well, and you mentioned Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark, those stories.
Don't put this on me, all right?
So
how dare you?
So what is your favorite type of trap mechanism in these movies? So when you have the adventure movies and they spring a trap, what is your favorite one and how it's portrayed? For me, this is one I've seen. This is a classic, which is essentially the trigger, which is usually either you step on a tile that's kind of singled out, that's the button, right? And it opens up these holes in the wall where arrows are shot out, usually like poison arrows or whatever, and they're kind of throughout, and they have to either run or dodge. And I always thought that's cool to have these priests set up essentially like an artillery fire that's triggered by a button. It's treacherous, it looks cool, it allows for opportunities of gymnastics, which always looks cool. Or just luck, get on the ground and duck. But usually there's a parapet as well, so that doesn't always work.
Yeah, my favorite because of like comedic value combined with realism is the good old fashioned pitfall. Because you get the comedic value out of it because it either like you're hitting like a tripwire or the depressed tile button, and then the floor falls out, and like for like if you're doing it in like a cartoon or something, you get like the Bugs Bunny floating in midair thing, and then running on the air trying to get back. Like so you've got that, but then like I like it because it is one that's realistic. If you do any rating up on like the Vietnam War, like a lot of places in that the Viet Cong would be defended with punji sticks.
Yep.
Punji or pungi. Yeah,
one of those.
One of those. But which was just a pitfall with sharpened bamboo stakes with a lot of bacterial elements. A lot of times,
if you survive, it's gonna suck.
Yeah, even if you live, it sucks.
Yeah, you're the number one voted best war tactic in show. Dig a pit. If you're ever in war and you're defending a location or want to prevent someone from getting that location, dig a ditch. You know what? Dig 2 ditches. You can never dig enough ditches.
World War I taught us that you just don't stop digging ditches.
Yes, keep digging.
You just keep digging, and you do it until they send you home.
Yep, exactly. That is the key to winning. It's proven in history. But yeah, as always, that's actually a good one. The parapet is always good. So
yeah,
but don't do this. Don't try this at home, kids.
Don't try the traps at home. Leave that to the mercenaries.
Leave that to the mercenaries. So as always, thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon with the next episode.
Take care, everybody.